Look at the title. Which of my pro-Palestinian guests expressed support for Hamas? Piers has been fantastic in covering this conflict. It's good that he's giving a bunch of different people a platform. I don't know if Piers specifically has been great in covering the conflict. It's more that he brings other people onto his platform. But I guess that's in a way good. Dylan Burns, the official Piers Morgan React channel. That's what it feels like recently. This is what it does feel like. I mean, we got the time. Might as well. Might as well. Let's watch. Fine. You guys linked it. Okay, you linked it. You asked for more Piers Morgan, but this is the last Piers Morgan we're doing for a while. I'm too sick of this fucking British. I'm too sick of him.
Well, welcome back. Reports of anti-Semitism have soared in both the UK and the US, and indeed around the world since the Israel-Hamas war began. Many pro-Palestine supporters, however, believe that criticism of Israel is being censored by the claims of hate speech. Last night, Israeli President Isaac Herzog told me that a pro-Palestine march planned on the UK's Armistice Day should be banned. So are claims of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia being used to stifle legitimate criticism? And
by the way, it shouldn't be banned. I'm just going to throw that out there. You know, I know the UK isn't protected by the First Amendment, but if you just start making it so like major holidays you're not allowed to protest on to protect people's sensibilities, I mean, that number one, it's silly, but it doesn't really do anything to help, you know, help anyone outside of just making some people, I guess, feel good they don't have to hear another opinion. But it's the clear stifling of speech, unnecessary stifling of speech.
Indeed, free speech, or are the tensions on our streets in real danger of boiling over? Well, here to debate all this is the founder of the End Jew Hatred movement, Brooke Goldstein, the host of System Update, Glenn Greenwald, and the author of Go Back to Where You Come From, commentator Wajahat Ali. Welcome to all of you. Let me start with you, Brooke. I want to read you what you tweeted me recently, because I think this will set the tone for this debate. You said, Piers, I've been on the show. I know you to be a fair journalist, but I don't understand why you're giving these Islamo-Nazis such a large platform over and over again to spread their venom. There comes a point when you have heard their message and you've done your duty. Would you likewise host every single member of the SS in Nazi Germany for the sake of debunking?
Who is he talking about? Who is she talking about that Piers Morgan has had on? Who has been so bad that they're the Islamo-Nazi? I think at one point they might have. Did he have on like a Hamas representative at one point? Who is he? Who is she talking about? Feels like the majority of the people who like. I can't think of anybody that's brought on that I would give that label. Hassan? No, that's not Hassan. Who was it? Who? And it's not like Piers Morgan just lets them say their stuff completely with no like pushback whatsoever. And like, for example, that low-key interview got super heated.
I hate to say you're not doing a good job at it. Their lies and propaganda are so carefully crafted that the more you put Hamas apologists on, the more effective they become. Asking people to debate them, to debate how many babies were killed, whether it's by beheading or by stabbing or by burning babies alive, is tasteless and disgraces the memory of the innocent Jewish people who've been killed. At what point does your journalism become a propaganda tool for terrorism? They send their best and brightest to you to engage in mental masturbation, acrobatics, and they're running circles around you. With all due respect, enough. In the battle between good and evil, there is no journalistic obligation to continue to put evil on a platform to be debated. So, I mean, that seems to me a pretty strong way to start this debate, because what you seem to be saying is that so long as I have pro-Israeli voices, that's fine. As long as I have a lot of people like you who just have one view of this, then I'm a fair journalist. But the moment I stray into people who are pro-Palestinian in a very passionate manner, then somehow I'm failing.
This is the one question Piers Morgan has to ask. Who was the Islamo-Nazis I brought on, and how did I not properly pressure them? Those are the only two questions he has to ask. Who is the Islamo-Nazis? Give me names. Give me names. Because if she ends up saying something like Bassem Youssef, she's going to look like a clown, she's going to be dragged through the mud, and she's immediately going to discredit her at the immediate start of this conversation. Okay? I don't know who... Did he... I gotta look it up. Did Piers Morgan, like, have fucking Hamas representatives on stream? I mean, Piers Morgan. And by the way, I'm going to be blunt with you guys as a journalist. I think it's fine to interview Hamas representatives. I think it's fine to represent Palestinian Islamic Jihad representatives. Fuck, I'd go further. I think it's fine to interview ISIS fighters. I think it's fine to interview ISIS leaders. But it depends on how you interview them. It depends on how you pressure them. It depends what questions you ask and if you're properly prepared to do the interview. Let me look. Piers Morgan Hamas interview. Did he interview Hamas? I just gotta know, because who is she fucking referring to? I see the Crown Prince of Iran, and I don't see any. It doesn't look like it. He didn't have any Hamas guys on, so I really don't know who she's talking about.
In my journalistic duty. And I would say that that right there is part of the problem, Brooke, because I have tried to turn this show into a genuinely fair platform for all sides, all arguments, all voices. And I think we've been getting the audiences that reflects, which is people like it. They like to hear both sides. Why don't you?
So, Piers, thank you for bringing up that tweet. First, I want to say that's not what I'm saying at all.
By the way, Piers Morgan loves, I think he loves to take people off of Twitter who criticizes him, put them on the big screen, and be like, well, explain the tweet. Time for you to go. You clapped at me. Explain your clapping. And it's really funny every time. He does it like half the interviews he has done on his show since the war started has been started with, you called me gay on Twitter. Explain.
There's pro-Palestinian, there's pro-Israel, but you've been having pro-Hamas people on your platform, and you're giving them an opportunity to spew their virulent anti-Semitism and their propaganda that justifies Hamas terrorism. It's one thing to debate issues of...
Yes, thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay, fucking thank you. Jesus Christ, thank you, Piers, for asking the very obvious question.
Geopolitics and national...
Brooke, can you name one?
Right in front of me, I can't. I was replying to something that
well, just name one.
Had someone on that I was
Name
replying.
one guest I've had in a month.
You know, I don't have the names on me right now, but I can name someone who is on right now.
With all due respect, Brooke, with all respect, you tweeted this lengthy attack on me and my journalistic rigor and
so I
fairness,
will talk about
and
it.
I'm simply
Let's
asking you if you're going to do
the people you have on right now.
Hang on, Brooke. Hang on. If you're going to do that, I don't think it's unreasonable to say who. Which of my pro-Palestinian guests expressed support for Hamas? Because I must have missed that.
Was Jahat Ali, who is on the show right now with...
Okay, so it's okay. Now, see, she doesn't have anybody. She has no one. She's immediately fucking face planted. Iran is now marching on Tel Aviv. They're going to capture Tel Aviv. Israel's going to be pushed into the sea because of how humiliating this is. She's humiliated Israel. She's humiliated the Jewish people. Oy vey, my guy. Like, what? How do you do such a fucking lengthy tweet? Like, you had the pro-Hamas. This is horrible, terrible. And then immediately he's just like, okay, who did I bring on? It's like, I don't know, but I don't know. I saw one of them. They said Palestine be free, and that wasn't enough for me. Like, and so now she's complaining about somebody that's on now. But the problem is, she didn't say that now. She said that a week ago. Then that's what got her on the show, or presumably got her on the show. So I assume there must be someone else. I mean, the easiest answer I would give is like low key, but low key isn't like pro-Hamas. Even if he spreads disinformation and he says a lot of stupid stuff, he isn't pro-Hamas. That's the only person I can think of, and because that's the only guest that Piers Morgan who's had on that wouldn't explicitly condemn what happened on October 7th, and even that isn't technically pro-Hamas. So I don't know who she's referring to. And I don't think she has a person. So now she's trying to fall on today's show because there's nobody else.
With us, for example, has deep connections to the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the mother of all terrorist organizations.
Wait, I thought it was Hamas. I thought we were pro-Hamas. Now, I know the Muslim Brotherhood has deep connections to Hamas, but I thought we were talking about Hamas. Okay, whatever. Now we're over to the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, I thought it was pro-Hamas people. Now we're pro-Muslim Brotherhood people. Okay, whatever.
Spawned Hamas, a designated terrorist group, which is currently killing both Gazan and Israeli civilians. Was Jahat Ali, who is on the platform with me right...
By the way, can I just say, there's so much outrage around, you know, like the Hamas, the pro-Hamas people Piers Morgan brought on that he never actually brought on. What about like the Israeli politicians that he's brought on that oversaw governments that committed war crimes? Was there any outrage that he would dare do that? No, that's a foregone conclusion. I mean, those are Israeli politicians. They're in suits, they're in ties, you know, they're allowed to come on, they're allowed to represent their side, but apparently that doesn't go both ways. Okay, whatever.
Now, and your audience needs to know this, sat on the board of the Muslim Student Association, which is widely known to be a Muslim Brotherhood entity. He also has writings that are cross-posted on the English language website of the Muslim Brotherhood. He has cross-posted authors who call for the eradication of the Jewish state. He's a leading writer at CAP, the Center for American Progress, which also has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. He has criticized cracking down on the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. And of course, he just published an article saying that he's against Hamas because it's politically expedient to him, but he is connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. That's who you have on your show right now.
Before I go to him, you've just said he'd just written a piece condemning Hamas, so you kind of kill your own argument. Let me go to Jahad.
Well, he's sucking and blowing at the same time.
Okay, let me go to the man you've just been.
Let me go to Wajahat that they are using right now.
Let me go to the man you've been accusing. Wajahat, what do you say to that?
Well, first of all, excellent pronunciation of my name, Brooke. Thank you. Also, it's pretty amazing that for a human rights lawyer, you really don't seem to care much about human beings who happen to be Palestinians or Muslim or Arab. It's like a fireman who's actually an arsonist, but thank you.
I risked my life to make a movie about Arab children. I risked my life.
Okay. I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet.
Brooke,
to make a movie about Arab children and was given an award by the United Nations for my advocacy work for Palestinian children.
Let him answer.
So good job on doing your research.
Let him answer you, please.
You are the hero and you are the victim. But let me say the following. Let me say that the person who accused me of being the Muslim Brotherhood and the person who's accused us, anyone who's pro-Palestinian, of being a Nazi, which is, by the way, what Brian Mass said, a Republican. He said there's no such thing as Palestinian civilians because they're just like Nazis, right? But anyway, let me say this, because Piers, I've seen your show. I appreciate
Brooke, can you let Wajahat speak, please?
Do you condemn the Muslim Brotherhood?
Let me say this. I'm going to go a step forward. Look at this. This is what I'm going to do, because I've seen people with my melanin on Piers' show. I've proactively been asked to condemn Hamas. I condemn Hamas. I condemn Hezbollah. I condemn Islamic Jihad. I condemn Muslim Brotherhood. I condemn chocolate hummus. I condemn anti-Semitism. I condemn Islamophobia. I condemn white supremacy. I also condemn Israel's occupation. I condemn settler violence against Palestinians that have killed over 100 people on the West Bank. I condemn Netanyahu using dehumanizing language that you use.
This is really good, man. Dude, he's presenting himself so much better than her. Oh my God. Like, not only is he just like, look, I'm just going to bite all your bullets here. I'm going to bite bullet 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Just go through all the condemnations right off the bat so you don't have to ask me about this again. Not only am I going to do that, but then I'm going to use it as a segue to then talk about the condemnations of the Israeli government. And then he can turn the tables and say, will you condemn the Israeli occupation? Oof. I mean, you just need to put that cherry on top at the end of it.
Such as calling every Palestinian Amalek. I condemn the heritage minister saying that he wants to drop a nuke on Gaza. I have condemned all of that. Do you, Brooke, join me in condemning everything that I have condemned? Because I think as a human rights lawyer, anyone who cares about humanity, they should condemn everything that I have condemned. Brooke,
100%.
do you condemn?
So why, if you condemn the Muslim Brotherhood, are you publishing?
Damn, she just avoids that question. She doesn't need to condemn anyone. Okay, whatever.
With this,
I'm sorry. Like, look, I don't like going into debate and immediately just being like, I just don't like you. But she just came off just so pretentious. She was just so high and mighty on Twitter. Immediately couldn't answer any follow-up about who exactly she's even referring to. And now it's face planting, man. I don't like if somebody comes in so hard and then has nothing to back it up. Like, in my mind, just like completely like, not saying she's worthless, but it feels like there's not really much she can add to the conversation if she, you know, makes a lot of noise to get on Piers Morgan's show, then is put on his show, and then all the noise that she made to get on his show actually meant nothing.
the Center for American Progress, which is strong ties to the Muslim Brotherhood? And why do you allow your papers to be cross-posted on Muslim Brotherhood websites? Why have you denied Jewish indigeneity to Judea?
Okay,
Why
you know what, Brooke, I'm going to get it. I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to jump in because we're straying. You keep mentioning.
And you say these things on television,
Brooke,
but you write the exact opposite
Brooke,
in your writing.
I'm going to jump in and come to Glenn. He's been waiting very patiently as you guys have been going at it. Glenn, in a way, this kind of is reflective of the debate I thought we should be having, because it seems to me that.
Oh God! Apparently, somebody just sent me a video of the Vanguard who talked about me and Hassan, and they claimed I didn't say anything about Palestine. Okay, we'll look at that next, I guess.
A lot of people are simply not prepared to tolerate other views. Generally, in society, we've got to a place where people get cancelled if they don't toe the line, don't have the opinion that a certain group of people have decided is the only opinion that's allowed. How have we got there? How has it been through this war? I mean, to me, watching Twitter, X as it now is in this war, is like this terrible assault on the brain. It's just people screaming in a self-righteous, often fake news-oriented way, trying to scream their opponents into submission. Where has honest democratic debate gone? What do we do about this?
Yeah, I think you're right that, Brooke, your first guest, is a perfect reflection of what has gone so wrong with this discourse ever since October 7th. She did two things that has been really pathological in terms of how we're trying to conduct discourse about a very serious issue. Number one, she equates every person who criticizes Israel or who defends the Palestinian cause of being an Islamic Nazi or somehow being associated with terrorists, as she did with Wajahat, with whom I have a lot of differences, but he has never done anything like that. The idea that the Center for American Progress, can I?
You are doing exactly what you accused me of doing.
You must let him speak.
Are you able to
Brooke, you had a chance to speak. I want to hear from Glenn.
The idea that the Center for American Progress is some sort of crypto terrorist group, when in fact it is the most mainstream Democratic Party platform that hosted Benjamin Netanyahu, that completely supports Israel, just like the Democratic Party does, is derangement. And this attempt to accuse everyone of being a bigot or an anti-Semite the minute they express any criticism of Israel, I think is very toxic. But the worst thing, Piers, is that ever since a month ago when this started, we have had a spate of censorship throughout the West aimed only at one side, which is the pro-Palestinian side. France banned all pro-Palestinian protests. You can have pro-Israel protests. You can go and say you think Gaza should be flattened, that all Gazans should be eradicated, like many people say. What you can't do, though, is march in opposition to the French policy. The British Home Secretary said waving a Palestinian flag may be a crime. In the U.S., they're banning pro-Palestinian groups. So we can have our differences. Obviously, this is a very inflammatory issue, but what we should not do is try and suppress healthy debate through state censorship, through banning one side from expressing themselves, or accusing everybody of being a terrorist and a Nazi because they express criticism for the Israeli government, something which many Jews like myself and many Israelis do as well.
Okay, let me go to Brooke.
No,
I want to ask Brooke, I want to ask you a question. I'm actually...
Is this pro-Palestinian?
Okay, Brooke.
The murder and bludgeoning of a Jewish man at a pro-Hamas rally? These are not pro-Palestinian rallies. What is banned is pro-Hamas in Europe. Hamas is a designated terrorist group, and you should understand the difference between that. When you lock students in a library at Cooper's Union and bang on the door and threaten them with violence, that is not free speech. When you beat up Jews because you are projecting your hatred of a foreign government on somebody because of what they look like or what their religion is, that is bigotry. That is not free speech. And
this presumes that the goal of the March on Armistice Day is going to go like Jew hunting, that all these protesters are going to go out to like local synagogues or whatever, and they're going to hunt all the Jews down and beat them up. That presumes that. Why can she presume that that's the goal of the protest? That's what they're going to do. Why is that the presumption here? Is there any way for people to go out and march for Palestine in her mind that isn't like covered by, I mean, that would be considered free speech? Is there any way for that to happen? Because if it's just like the constant fear that one of these protests could get violent, I mean, it's a heated topic that could happen at times, but that is, you know, the cost of living in a free society is that the authorities don't immediately crack down on every like single protest because it might get rowdy or it might get even violent at times.
Are there two
Obviously,
You should crack down on the violence, of course, but you do not just cancel every single protest saying one day it might get violent.
violence is
between
obviously
you and me.
violence is a
If I
crime.
may,
Okay, let me- okay. Don't all speak at once. I want to bring in Wajahat, please, to respond to that. Let me, Brooke, you can't just keep talking. You've made a powerful point.
Okay, so
let me go to Wajahat for a response.
This is the big difference between you and me, Brooke, and there are many differences, that I have the capacity to empathize with the suffering of the Jewish people and with Palestinians. That when I see anti-Semitism, when I see Jews who are afraid in Europe and in America, I condemn it. When I see Muslims afraid of Islamophobia, I condemn it. When I see Wadia, who was a 6-year-old boy, murdered simply because he was Palestinian American, I condemn it. When I see this man, the 69-year-old man, and they're researching it right now to see whether or not it was a hate crime, I will condemn it. The difference between me and you is that when I see dead children, when I see 4,000 Palestinian kids who are killed, it horrifies me. As a human rights lawyer, I'm amazed why this does not horrify you. When you see 4,000 kids killed, this does not shock you. For you, it's collateral damage. Right now, the IDF yesterday said, can I finish?
I'm sorry.
Can I finish? The IDF yesterday said, the IDF yesterday said, stop interrupting me. Please, IDF yesterday said that of the 10,000 people killed, only 60 were Hamas operatives. So that means that 10,000 people were killed by Israel in the past month, 4,000 children, more kids killed in the past month than in the past 3 years of all war zones, the conflict zones combined.
We don't know that. We don't know that for sure. The problem is with this data is it is dependent upon not having full casualty counts for certain wars, especially for example, at least in my experience, right, the war in Ukraine. The UN data that is used to count the amount of children that has died in the war in Ukraine explicitly says, this is from the UN, they say we don't have all the data. These are the bodies that we have identified, but we cannot access bodies in occupied territory. And they specifically referenced the Battle of Mariupol in saying that they have probably gotten their estimation off by the thousands. And that was during the Battle of Mariupol. Afterwards, there were Ukrainian government reports talking about over 35,000 dead in the city, even though, like, I think the UN confirmed 1,000. And then AP later came out with another report saying that the 35,000 estimated projection from the Ukrainian government could actually be a massive underestimate. And if you track it by looking at the giant graves that popped up around Mariupol after the battle, that they estimate the death toll to be somewhere between 35,000 to 75,000 dead. And that isn't, while that death toll is horrific, it's not too surprising when you realize that Mariupol was the largest city that was put under siege by the Russians successfully. And knowing Russia's history of putting cities under siege in a very brutal way, like in Grozny, for example, it's not those death numbers, while massive and hard to wrap your head around, are not completely impossible. And so when you're only counting 1,000 to 2,000 people from that battle, when certain estimates from credible news organizations like AP are saying it could go as far as 75,000, I'm just saying that the data is not complete. But the difference is, and I just want to emphasize this point because I don't want to be seen as I'm discrediting that a lot of children are dying in Gaza. Gaza is surrounded on two sides by the Israelis. They're not allowed to leave into the ocean by the Israelis. So there's really three sides. And the last side in Gaza is Egypt, which is not allowing to evacuate. And 48% of the city is made up of people under the age of 14. And it is extremely dense. So putting those factors together, any large-scale bombing campaign, especially one with loose rules of engagement, is going to kill a lot of Palestinian civilians. And it probably has killed probably the largest amount of civilian casualties in a war zone in quite a while. Or at least it's one of the largest amount of children's death in a war zone in the world. But we don't know for sure because we just don't have all the data.
I say it's inhumane and indecent. Do you condemn the 4,000 kids that have been killed? And as of yesterday, the IDF said only 60 people were Hamas operatives. Human rights lawyer, do you condemn it?
The pro-Israel and the so-called Hamas Palestinian movement is that we mourn the death of all civilians, where the pro-Palestinian Hamas protests after October the 7th, were out on the street celebrating the death of dead Jewish civilians. That is the difference.
So
and the other difference between you is that you fail to understand the concept
I want to bring, sorry,
of cause and effect.
Can you please?
You fail to understand the concept of cause and effect.
It remains my show at the moment. All right, Brooke, that's enough for now. I want to bring Glenn in.
Law is very clear.
Brooke, you've had a chance to respond.
International law is very
Brooke, you've had a chance to respond. Please respect the other panelists.
Okay.
Glenn,
yes.
I want to bring Glenn in.
I'm sorry.
Glenn,
so I just
let me ask Glenn.
Yeah.
Glenn, you're a Jewish man. When you look at what is going on here, I will be completely candid. I've said this to other guests in the last couple of weeks. I've found what happened on October the 7th to be an unbelievable scale of barbaric terrorism beyond anything I've seen in my lifetime, to be honest with you, the way it was done. And I completely understand Israel's not only right, but duty to defend itself. But is there a line here that Israel shouldn't cross in its attempt to eradicate Hamas? When you see 10,000 Palestinians killed within the space of 4 weeks, and we know it's going to get much, much higher, and so many are children, is there a moral line that Israel shouldn't cross? Or is their argument that they've got to get rid of Hamas, and in war, you have collateral damage, and in this case, it's the civilians who are living around Hamas, and it's awful, but that's what has to happen.
Every decent person found the Hamas massacre on October 7th reprehensible and morally unjustifiable. The question, though, is what does that mean that everything that Israel does in response becomes justifiable? And the answer is clearly not. Just like everything the United States did in response to 9/11, which was also morally horrific and unjustifiable, killed 3,000 Americans. Everything that the United States did in response was...
Just by comparison, Glenn Greenwald looks really good here. Just in comparison to this woman, like, Glenn Greenwald looks like a very well-dressed, sensible man.
Morally justifiable simply by virtue of the fact that they claimed to be doing it in the name of avenging 9/11. They tortured people. There were secret camps in Guantanamo. They invaded and destroyed Iraq, a country of 26 million people, giving rise to ISIS. The laws of war were created after World War II, ironically, when the world looked at what happened in World War II, the atrocities there, and said, we know there are going to be wars, but there have to be limits. You cannot collectively punish a population. That is a war crime because certain people in that country have done bad things. You cannot just bomb people indiscriminately without regard to civilian life. And how many tens of thousands or even 100,000 Palestinians does Israel have the right to kill in the name of trying to destroy Hamas? Of course, there are humanitarian limits and laws of war that were created after World War II that the Nuremberg Tribunal said apply to every country in the future, no matter how just your cause. And I thought that was the lesson of 9/11, that just because a country is enraged and acting with a quest for violence doesn't mean that everything they do in the name of avenging that terrorist attack becomes justifiable or morally defensible.
Okay.
Much of what the United States did wasn't, and much of what Israel's doing isn't either.
Okay, Glenn, powerful words.
Piers,
Thank you for joining me. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I will get you back on the program because you've been a terrific guest tonight. I've enjoyed that debate. It's been fiery.
I just want to say is that Jews have led the protests. Jews have actually led the protests.
You said it.
Jews calling for a ceasefire.
You said it, and I appreciate that.
Consider them to be Hamas.
Okay, I've got to leave it there. I'm sorry.
There are Jews. I mean, like, when they say Jews are leading the protest, it depends on the protest. But there are Jews, like, not like, if not now, then when, who have participated in the protests and have led their own protests.
Thank you very much indeed to my panel. I appreciate you all joining me. Glenn, Brooke.
Just cut her off, man.
Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, man. God, she made her cause look terrible. Does anybody else reflect that in the comments? Brooke is a perfect example of how possible it is to have a conversation with narrow-minded racist people. Jesus Christ. Damn, they're fucking tearing her a new one down there. Okay, boys, that's enough of that. I'm done with Piers Morgan. I don't want to, like, these are interesting, and sometimes they're, you know, a little, like, they're interesting to watch. But, like, I've seen so many of these Piers Morgan's interview now, you know? I've seen so many of them. How many, I'm British out, okay? I'm Britished out.